Larys Strong and Alicent Scene Explained. In episode 9 of the show, it's safe to say that we got one of the strangest scenes that we've seen in the show so far. It was an encounter between Larys Strong and Queen Alicent, and it involved a fetish that it seemed as though Larys had developed. However, although this was the first time we'd seen it, it had actually been occurring in front of our eyes subtly without us even realizing. So I thought I'd break down the scene and explain all that there was to take away from this interesting yet poignant scene. So let's get into it. Here is Larys Strong and Alicent's Scene Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. In the most recent episode of the show, we saw a scene occur between Alicent and Larys Strong where she appeared to do as he pleased, much to her disgust, in order to receive some information. The boundaries that Larys Strong has been pushing is something that it would seem as though Alicent Hightower would normally not allow an individual to get away with, but with Larys he seems to be able to assert some authority in a wide variety of different ways, despite the fact that he seems as slimy as Littlefinger. Within this scene we saw Larys in Alicent's chamber at a late hour, far later than anybody would usually be permitted to visit, and we saw him state how he had some information that she should know. It was at this point where we saw her remove her shoes. This allowed Larys to continue speaking, but he was reluctant to spill the final piece of information on her father being aware of a network of spies being involved in the palace. This was until she took the final step and removed her socks, which ultimately allowed her bare feet to be visible upon the table, which meant that Larys would proceed to please himself whilst admiring them. This scene said a couple of different things, but first I just want to point out that this wasn't the first time that we'd seen Alicent exposing her feet to Larys before. In episode 6, when we saw them meet for dinner, prior to her sitting down, we saw her remove her shoes before joining him at the table, which is most likely a request of Larys prior to their meeting, showing that what we saw occur in episode 9 has most certainly occurred in the past, and this wasn't the first time. The scene in episode 9 showed us that Larys clearly has a foot fetish. The beginning of it focused on and put a great importance on Larys's clubfoot when he was walking over to the chair to sit down on, so it showed that he could have a thing for feet because of his own foot. We saw that Alicent didn't feel comfortable in the slightest at all in doing this, but it showed that she knew that there was no other way of finding out the information that she desired. Larys has a hold over her in a way like no other does. Like Otto uses Alicent, Larys does the exact same thing. She's his pawn in the game as well. Larys is most likely able to get away with this due to the fact that he's made Alicent believe that she's the person who ordered the killing of Lionel Strong and Harwin Strong, and she doesn't want that information to get out, despite never placing an order of the kind. There's that, but also another fear that's most likely present within her. She most likely sees Larys for the evil individual that he is, and how she'd rather have him on her side than not. As if he's prepared to kill his father and brother, there's nothing to say that he wouldn't do the same to her if she were to stop. The information he holds is extremely beneficial and useful when he does decide to reveal it, but it seems as though for a long while it's come at a price to Alicent, and that price is the admiration of her feet. Whilst it seems as though he may have the control at the moment over what he wants and when he gets it, it wouldn't surprise me if he eventually gets too big for his boots, and will ultimately end up digging himself into a deeper hole which he's unable to get out of. He's already getting between Otto and Alicent, and I imagine there are going to be many other toes that he's likely going to tread on in order to keep pushing his position with Alicent further. So I'm intrigued to see exactly what's going to go down the next time we see him, and if his position of bargaining power has grown or gotten smaller. What started as a brief encounter in the garden progressed to a meeting over dinner, and has now ultimately ended up involving after-hour chamber visits with pleasuring himself amongst the sight of Alicent's feet for an exchange of information. It's taken a somewhat unexpected turn. So, there you have it. Larys Strong and Alicent Scene Explained. If you want to see more videos on House of the Dragon, such as endings explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the I button. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this scene? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.